This was a couple of years ago. I collaborated with Christy Miner on a unique cross-curricular pilot study with 80 4th and 5th grade students and 7 teachers at her school near Binghamton, New York. The project grew out of an online graduate science course that Montana State University asked me to create in 2000 after I gave a keynote speech about the relationship between art and science, and that I then co-developed and co-taught for the past 11 years with an entomologist, Faith Deering. So she sort of needed to do other things. And like I said before, the concept was always that you could use words as well to report back. And so Christy developed that part. So the course brought teachers, students, and live insects together. We're back to this. I didn't do that. Oh, you know, if we bump this, where do we go? Those are the guidelines. Those are the guidelines for observation. And I think it's going to be online, so you can look at it later. And there's me giving my little slide talk. And it did a professional development workshop. So, the course brought these, the live insects together in an inquiry-based investigation. Instructional methodology is based on teaching the process of organized observation as the foundation of science and art. Our current work takes that work a step further, combining art, science, and writing. It must be doing that all by itself. Our collaboration, which culminated in 20 student-created narrative nonfiction picture books, emphasized the skills of organized observation. These key skills taught students to look and think carefully about what they were observing and then communicate their new knowledge and understanding through drawing and writing. The project was implemented in 4 phases. During the first phase, I presented an introductory section to students and teachers using many examples from my books. You saw that. My presentation included an in-depth look at how the eye and brain work, which you're seeing. Christy and I then provided teachers, which I think is, those are the teachers there, with a professional development session, which included a project overview and drawing tips. Next, the African violet, we using the African violet as a model organism instead of the milkweed bugs, a lot easier. We taught a series of inquiry-based lessons that offered a step-by-step approach to learning the process of close observation. After my initial visit, teachers instructed students in the research observation techniques, guiding them through the inquiry-based lessons. As a pre-assessment measure, students were asked to create a drawing of the African violet using only their imagination and provide a written description as well, including as many details as possible. So before they see an African violet, and that's the trick, you have them just, okay, draw an African violet and describe it verbally. And the difference, let's see, there's a progression. So the first one on the left is by the same student, is from their mind what they, their prior knowledge of plants really. And the second one was when they actually had the plant in front of them and drawing from it. And then they did another one where they labeled it. And the fourth one was like the first one. So put away the African violets, draw an African violet, and write about it. And now you can see the writing. Now if you look up on the top left, you can see there's, 4, 5, 6 lines up there? That was their description to start. And if you look down here, at the last one, it goes that far. And then when they were actually observing it, they had all that other information in between. So, I think we covered that. They're asked to look very closely and more critically at the defining characteristics of the African violet, and again, draw and write about it. During the second phase, which while engaged in the observation skills activities, students participated in 3 science-based lessons that focused on the care, structure, and life cycle. This is the science part. They learned about the basic needs of the African violet, studied the individual parts of the plants, and you can see them working there, and the function, and learned about the life cycle of a flowering plant. During the third phase, students investigated, let's see, the narrative nonfiction writing unit designed by Christy. First, students were immersed in the genre, reading and listening to quality mentor text being read aloud. Next, they met their audience of 3rd grade students, which is what we're seeing here, to make decisions about what kind of material to include and how to present their ideas. Then, working in small groups, the students selected an animal species to research. They learned a narrative structure to develop a story arc, and then applied the key skills of organized observation as they conducted research to further develop their arc. The emphasis was on producing accurate, detailed drawings and descriptions as the recorded fact-based information. Always it's about accuracy, not about whether it's good or bad. Is it accurate? Are you representing what you're seeing with your eyes? Students learned how to establish a setting and develop nonfiction characters to draw readers into that story. Using the research they gathered through organized observation, students added precise content-specific vocabulary, sensory details, and figurative language as they continued to develop their narrative. Students learned ways of using text features, I think we're ahead, to provide additional information to the reader and how to organize their narrative using headings and subheadings. They also learned to write an engaging lead and a conclusion that followed from the narrated experiences and events. Finally, they learned how to choose an interesting title to reflect the theme of the story. During the fourth phase, I returned to Christie School. She lives about 4 hours away. About 6 weeks after my initial visit, after she had done all this work with the students and they had written their text, researched and written their nonfiction text. I worked with each group of students towards the goal of producing an 8-page illustrated book demonstrating step-by-step how to create accurate and detailed images based on their words. First, I showed students how to create thumbnail sketches, very small, very rough pencil drawings that are meant to be drawn rapidly. If you saw one without having to read the text, it would look like tiny scribbles. The key is to do many of them quickly, and the people in the workshop are going to find that out today. This is an essential step in the illustration process that helps students translate their words into images as they develop their story ideas into a book. Next, I taught the students the process of creating templates based on the ideas they developed in thumbnail sketches. Students worked in small groups as they planned each 2-page spread, then individually on separate elements within the composition. Once the templates were designed, we taught them how to develop studies. Accurate, see, these are the studies. I think you can see that this is where they're doing the tracing and transferring. They use tracing paper and just went up the window to do the tracings to transfer the drawings around. Let's see, they were included in the template. They completed the process by tracing and transferring their studies onto the final drawing paper. Finally, with the assistants, well, we're not quite there, but you can see all these different steps. So they went on the computers. I really love that one where they're working, where's the one where they're looking at computers? I guess it's a little further. So we had book references. We had little animals that they got and drew from those, from life essentially, and they got information off the computers. Finally, with the assistance of the school's art teacher, they experimented with a variety of finishing techniques to add color. The text was imported using Photoshop, and the books were published in full color format by the school's duplicating center. So then there was this little event to celebrate the work. They got together with third grade students, read the stories aloud, and presented each student with a copy of their books. And then they also were featured on the family literacy night, and parents were invited to see it. And then that's the last one that shows the 20 different books. Now these are the narrative nonfictions. We also did feature articles, a second pilot study doing the same basic technique, same basic process, but with the idea of doing like a 2-page feature article that included illustrations. I think I have them with me. I'll put them up along with, I think that's it, folks, for, let's see. Well, let's see, we're good. I'll run through this because, okay, this is the entire, well, anybody have questions about this process, about that I worked with the students, because this is a little different. Anybody have any questions right now about that process? We'll think about it for the next couple of minutes. I'll show you this. So this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and this is the thumbnail, the whole entire 32-page book. This is one of them, page 12 and 13. And what it's talking about is how crows like to have fun. They do, they fly up in the air and drop a stick and catch it before it hits the ground. They like to nip, they've been known to nip dogs, sleeping dogs' tails and then fly away. And so this was the concept. That's, this thumbnail's really about as big as my thumb, and it shows everything I need. It shows where the text is going to go, 4 lines, 5 lines, that the crow is on the ground, not flying. He's pointing to the right. He's approaching this, whatever it is, but there's a tail on it. And that's all you need. That's what you start with. You've got the concept right there, everything in it. Then I did a sketch. And the sketch, I had 3 major mistakes. I mean, this is hopefully not too common, but it happens pretty regularly. So I didn't think it through properly. First of all, it doesn't look like, he's got to be, first of all, it's a wolf pup, not a dog, okay? And secondly, it looks, in terms of scale, he is not about to bite that tail. The dog has to be, the puppy has to be, feet away, many feet away. And let's see, there was one, what was the other issue? But, so I had to start over. And,
that's your 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
That's perfect. So there you can see I did a new sketch, a new dog. I had the crow a little closer, but the tail was still wrong. So I did a color version, but then it was too dark. And it didn't fit in with the flow of the book. So I redid it, added the tail, made it a little longer, and did the finish of the book. So I think that'll do it. Well, let's see. We've got 5 minutes, so I'll show you this real quick. This was from the Dragonfly book, and this was my sketch. And you see where that thing part goes into its mouth? It doesn't do that. There's like a big hole in its head there, and I just didn't know what it looked like. Because these little dragonfly nymphs, when they're in the water, they covered that. They have a thing called a mask that fits like this over their mouth, and the little sharp needle claws. And it's actually a mouth part that comes down from up here, and has 2 hinges and goes to their mouth. And when they're close enough to a prey, this thing shoots out underwater in 1/20,000th of a second and comes back in with their lunch. And so this was good for the sketch because it showed everything I needed to show and to the editors and everything else. But I didn't know what that looked like. So one of them died. I had it in the freezer. I took it out, got my little binocular scope, and checked it out. And there you can see what it looked like. I think there's a close-up. There you can see the hinges. You can see those little needle-sharp things. And then, so basically the mouth, this is sort of broke apart. The hinge should be over here, but eyes and the mouth is behind there. And like I said, most of the time you don't see that at all. So I had to do, as far as I know, no one's ever depicted that before. I had to do a lot of research. And there's the drawing and the finished piece. So I think that gives you a pretty good idea of what I do.